I started practicing Shintaido in 1995, and my brother Stephen is married to Bela Breslow. So they introduced me to Shintaido, but they were living in San Francisco and I was living in Massachusetts. So it took me a little while after my initial introduction to get a regular teacher. But I was fortunate enough to have Margaret Gay eventually unwillingly accept me as a student, because she just didn't really want to teach. It wasn't me she didn't want to teach. She just didn't really want to teach. Anyway, eventually she and I got together in 1996, and I studied Shintaido pretty seriously for about 12 years or so. And then I had a back injury, so I was sidelined for a bit. And I did a lot of learning by watching. I did a lot of learning by watching. But I've always loved it. And I've always found that it appealed to me because of the spiritual nature of it, as well as the physical movement form. And I was very fortunate to be able to teach Shintaido to undergraduate students for several years, for about 10 years, because in my former life, I'm retired now, but in my former life, I was an academic and I taught philosophy at a small Catholic women's college in Connecticut. And the students there had to take one they had to take one kinesthetic credit. And they could either be on a sports team, or they could take karate with somebody else, or they could take Shintaido with me. And so I ended up with classes of 15 to 20 every semester. Out of that, 2 students went on to study quite seriously for several years, which is pretty exciting. And it was really a joy to experience introducing them to Shintaido, because I was never quite sure what they made of it. You know, they would take it and they would be part of it weekly for 15 weeks, and then they might go away and I might never see them again. But it was fascinating to have that opportunity to share it with so many young people. And I was also fortunate to be able to, through the university I was teaching at, I went to Japan, and I was able to go to I met Aoki Sensei at that time. This was in 2014. And I was able to go to a Bojutsu class at Chuo. Yeah. And so it was very exciting to go to another university and see these Japanese students. And they didn't practice once a week like my students did. They practiced every day. And on the 7th day, they didn't rest, but on the 7th day, they would have a social evening.
Wow.
And it was lovely. But that was something that I found when I was reading through the Shakunetsu, that it had initially been much more encompassing socially and spiritually for people, that it wasn't just that you went along to a class once or twice a week. It was that these were now your people. This was your tribe. And that feeling was still going on at Chuo, because they got together every single day to practice. And then on the 7th day, they had a party, which I just thought was lovely. So, and I miss that, I miss that about Shintaido. I mean, I would be happy to practice on every 6 days and on the 7th day have a party. I would totally be up for that. So that's my sort of Shintaido experience. And in terms of my writing and editing experience, I've written 2 books. I published 2 books, academic books, and then edited for publication about a dozen more. And then, probably 2 dozen or at least 2 dozen scholarly articles that I wrote. So when I was asked to participate in this, I thought, sure, it's what I do. It's, it's easy for me. And it's fun because I've also had a lot of experience working interdisciplinarily and internationally. So I'm very used to picking up something that's not quite English and massaging it into academic English anyway. And also having long arguments with people about the Oxford comma and so on, which nobody doesn't have an opinion about it. If they say they don't have an opinion about it, they're lying. So yeah, that's it. So I've had a lot of experience proofreading and copy editing and editing in general, but mostly what I was doing on the book was not editing, it was just copy editing. So